Welcome everyone to my channel. My name is Jeremy Crow, and tonight I'm going to tell the story of how I met the Morrigan. So this is something that happened quite a few years ago. I must have been about 20 or 21 years old, and I'm currently 47, so you can do the math. Actually, Mike Usnick is here in the chat. Welcome. Glad that you could make it. And Mike actually helped me realize who it was that I encountered. I didn't realize that it was the Morrigan until Mike actually pointed out the possibility. And then I looked into it and I was like, yes, that I you finally helped me figure it out. For a long time, I wasn't quite sure. I thought maybe it was Hecate or maybe Erishkigal. I knew it was some sort of dark goddess, but it wasn't until recently that, with Mike's help, that I realized that it was the Morrigan. So before I get into the actual story this evening, one of the things that I like to do on this channel for my live streams is to do a divination to start us off. So usually one of the things that I've been into lately, and I've been delving quite deep into it, is the I Ching. And the copy that I have here is by Benabel Wen. She has a YouTube channel as well, and this edition is hardcover. It's over 900 pages. It's got a lot of information on esoteric Taoism as well. I'll put a link in the description later if you want to pick this up. So I'm not going to go through the whole process of throwing the coins and deriving each line. I'm just going to do it via bibliomancy. So I'm going to open it up. I'm just going to go through and open it up at one of the chapters, and we'll see what we get. All right, so we ended up getting hexagram 29, the abyss. Oh wow, here we go. Okay, so the abyss is composed of the water trigram over the water trigram. So two water trigrams, um, one over the other. Here, I'll give you another look. All right, so I'm just going to read the oracle portion of it. I'm not going to get into each individual line. All right, here. The abyss. A primal chaos before creation. A dark night with no glimmer of moonlight, sinking into the depths of an abyss. Such is the nature of the womb that births the eminent ones. A journey at this time is favorable for avoiding the pitfalls. Move to sidestep the path of the storm. Seek refuge and be refuge. Honor the gods and ancestors to receive further insight. Wow. That's actually, especially that last line, in particular, I find quite relevant to what we're talking about this evening. Now, some of you may know my background, my heritage, and that would be Ojibwe and Scottish. So I have some Celtic and I have some Native American. Well, in Canada here we call it First Nation. So the Morrigan, of course, is part of Celtic spirituality. And let's see here. So honoring my ancestors, that side of my ancestry, that's where I get the red beard from. from my Celtic roots, that side of my heritage. So it's pretty interesting that that would come up. Now the abyss, all that about the abyss, that is very relevant to a lot of the stuff that I do. I've been finding that the I Ching is incredibly powerful, uh, and it speaks to me on a very personal level. Um, I'm going to continue working with this. It's I love it. I'm really loving it. So, all right. Do we have a few comments here? Was a long time ago, you old man. That's what Mike said. Yeah, yeah, it was a long time ago. I was young back then. I still feel young though. Beyond Zebra said, can't help but think of a fantastic novel called The Ancient Ones. It heavily involved the Morrigan and is rich in tons of mythology and occult stuff. I have a signed copy. Oh, cool, by Cassandra Thompson. Very cool. I'm sure you're going to hold on to that one. Yeah, actually, a book that I have been reading through is the first book in the Iron Druid trilogy. Actually, I've been listening to the audiobook edition of it, because I'm able to listen to it while I paint or if I'm doing chores or things like that or driving. But that has the Morrigan in it as well, and she comes into play pretty much right away in that book. It's pretty cool. It's fictional, but it's interesting. Actually, one of my longtime friends recommended it to me, so yeah, okay. Did that by the way, did that hexagram resonate with anyone else? It was incredibly powerful to me. Natosha says hello. Hello. Ah, that's Glitch. Oh, okay. Cool. I'm glad that you were able to make it to the live stream tonight, Glitch. Okay. Yeah, Mike said the body might age, but the soul never does. Those lines. He said that as old as he gets, he's like 75 now. Although he likes to pretend that it changes, but I think lately he's been saying 49. But yeah, he always says that people don't ever feel old, usually. There are some exceptions, but most of the time people don't feel old, and except for their body. In their mind, they don't feel old, but in their body, they do sometimes. Once if you find that you can't do as many things, but still, even then, in your mind or in your heart, that you still always feel young. All right. Okay, so we've gone through the comments here. Oh, it's cutting in and out. Okay. Oh yeah, your grandmother said she was 40, even into her 80s. All right. So, maybe I hit the cord on the mic. Maybe that was causing some connection there. Oh, okay. So, oh, 10-2, sup from Florida. Oh, that's Larry. Larry, you know what I'm talking about with this story here. So let me have a little drink of water here before I actually get into it. Okay, so this is something that let me just give you a little bit of background context before I tell the actual story. So, for my whole life, I've been a sporadic lucid dreamer. So when I was very, very young, I was plagued by nightmares. And I complained to my mother, and she told me, why not just take control of your dream? And I said, what? You can do that? And she goes, yeah, of course. It's your dream. And my mother was a natural lucid dreamer, and she just told me, "Oh yeah, you can just control your dream." And it never even occurred to me, and I was must have been 5 or 6 at the time. So the next time I had a nightmare, I remembered that, and I realized that I was in a dream, and I took control of it and was able to conquer my fear of the nightmare. And then from that point on, I just always had a random lucid dream throughout my life until I was a teenager. And at that point, I discovered that there was such a thing as lucid dreaming, that there was a name for it. Of course, I knew that it existed because I'd experienced it, but I didn't know there was a name for it. And I learned the term lucid dreaming, and I learned that there were things you could do in order to make it happen more frequently. And I started doing those things, and it worked. I was having all kinds of lucid dreams. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I have had a handful, really, experiences with sleep paralysis. So, sleep, and also the related old hag, it's called. Now, if you're familiar with that, it's basically when you wake up, usually you've been asleep and you wake up and you find that you can't move. Now, occasionally you will have dream elements seamlessly superimposed on the physical world that you're observing in the actual room that you happen to be in. And sometimes that will be a figure that is sitting on your chest or on the bed somewhere. Often you get the sensation that it's holding you down. That's old hag. Actually, there's another similar thing called a succubus or incubus, but we won't get into the details of that one. But just so you know, it's very similar to the both of those types of experiences. And I've had sleep paralysis and old hag a handful of times, and so I'm was became quite familiar with that experience, and could identify when it was happening and kind of just relax and not freak out after the first couple times it happened. I was able to just kind of relax, and because I knew it was going on and I knew that it was nothing dangerous. Okay. So this is what happened with that context in mind. And actually, before I go on, I wanted to mention, if you are interested in learning lucid dreaming, I do have a course that you can take. It's 6 hours of recorded video, and you get it when you join the Novus Ordo Luciferi, which is only $5 a month to join. And if you wanted to join that, the link is in the description of this video already at the Patreon, and it's pinned uh, in the live chat. So if you go to that Patreon and join for the $5 or above, you'll get access to that 6 hour pre-recorded video course on lucid dreaming, and it goes very in depth, and it even gets into the abyss, such as what we were talking about with the I Ching hexagram that came up in tonight's divination, and it fits. I refer to it as the void in that course. And you get access to a whole bunch of other courses too. And actually, after this live stream tonight, in about half an hour, there's going to be a private meeting for members of the Novus Ordo Luciferi, and you can jump on that tonight if you join at the $5 level or above this evening. You can join that private meeting tonight. And that being said, let's get into the meat of tonight's topic. So I was about 21 roughly, give or take. And I was in my bedroom uh, in the place that I was renting at the time. While I was in college, I was in college, and I was renting a place, and I was in my bedroom, and I wasn't asleep. I was actually sitting up in my bed, and I just started hearing this cackling, this laughter in the just outside my bedroom door, which was closed. And to me, it sounded like there were three witches outside my bedroom door that were just laughing and cackling. And it called to mind in the moment. It called to mind the three witches from Macbeth. That's what came to my mind when I heard that. Now I'm just sitting there, and it's a little creepy, right? And I'm starting to realize there's something a little off about this situation, right? And the cackling, the laughing stopped, and then from the corner of my bedroom, a dark, shadowy corner of my bedroom, came a dark goddess figure, which later, like or recently, much later, I came to realize was the Morrigan. And she came to me, and she looked a bit like how I portrayed her in the thumbnail of this video, where she had dark hair, pale complexion. She was wearing dark clothing, and she had vegetation hanging off of her, like moss, um, vines, maybe even. And she had this very dank aura around her, and she came at me. She approached me while I was sitting up in the bed, and I realized that uh, she was coming toward me, and she's she just came right up to me, and I turned to look at her, and by this point, I start to realize I'm in some sort of liminal state between waking and sleeping. But I know that I'm not having sleep paralysis because I'm able to move around. And it was also weird because I hadn't been sleeping. I was sitting up in my bed when this all started to happen. So, but I did feel like I was in some sort of liminal state between waking and dreaming, similar to a sleep paralysis type experience, but without the paralysis and without having fallen asleep first. So she approaches me, and I feel like she's coming at me with somewhat of a malevolent vibe, you could say. And she says to me, "You are going to die, die, die." And she says it like it was quite intense, yeah. And in the back of my mind, there is some fear there, and I'm thinking, wow. And the only thing I could think of to say in that moment, I replied to her, "I know." And she took it in, and she kind of looked at me like approvingly even, and it felt like she was satisfied with that answer. And as she started to back up, she started to she didn't take her eyes off of me, but she started to back up into the corner again. And in the back of my mind, I think, I hope she doesn't mean soon. But she completely retreated into the shadow, and just disappeared. Basically, she dissolved back into the shadow of that same corner that she had come out of. And I found myself sitting there in the bed, and I'm still in this liminal state or liminal space between waking and dreaming. And I had the most bizarre sensation where I could feel myself very gradually shifting in back into the normal waking state, but it was so gradual. There was like a gradient, and it was smooth, very, very smooth. Um, there was not one point at which I felt like a snap or like a switch. It wasn't like a switch, it was more like a dimmer or more like a crossfade on like a DJ, um, turntable equalizer, the crossfade, where it gradually shifted over into that other channel, which was the waking state or the waking experience. And that alone, that part of it alone, um, transformed my consciousness dramatically. I had already had a lot of experiences with dreaming, lucid dreaming, and sleep paralysis type experiences, as I had mentioned. But this actually made it clear to me why a lot of dreams, and especially lucid dreams, feel so real and why they can be so convincing and trick you into thinking that you're not dreaming at all. Why you have to be so sincere when you're doing your state testing. And it made me realize that the part of the mind that generates the dreaming experience when you're asleep and dreaming, it's the same function of the mind that produces the waking experience as well. It's just that you are rendering out a different bandwidth of data. So, just to be clear, when you are uh, in the waking experience, having the waking experience, information is coming in via your sense organs. Say, for example, your eyes. Light, a tiny, minuscule amount of light bounces off different objects and goes into the lens of your eye, which focuses it onto the rods and cones lining your retina. Certain frequency certain frequency ranges and intensity ranges of light will cause those rods and cones to trigger off an electrochemical signal which travels down the brain, or sorry, travels down the optic nerve into the visual cortex of the brain. And then your mind goes through a filtering process. It will sort through and filter and detect what it determines are meaningful patterns in that raw data coming in through the optic nerve. And it will take those meaningful patterns and it will render them symbolically into it will render them into a symbolic experience, which is then presented as a conscious waking experience. Now, a similar thing happens when you are asleep and dreaming, but it's processing a different bandwidth of signals. So mostly from your memory of your recent memory, but there are also 1111. But there are also random firings in the brain stem that feed into that signal. Now, modern science calls it random. Perhaps we're receiving some sort of signal from some external source. Maybe that's just pure speculation. Science refers to those firings in the brainstem as random, but those get fed into the mind just like a the electrochemical signal going down the optic nerve that enters into the mind as well and then gets filtered for meaningful patterns, which again get rendered into symbolic experiences, which is the dreaming experience. And then, or if you're awake and having the waking experience, it's that. But either way, it's still the same experience generating function of the mind that produces the dreams when you're asleep as the dreams when you're awake. And sometimes you end up processing somewhere in between. Um, and that's what was happening with me. I had, what I believe happened to me at that point was that the Morrigan had pulled me into a liminal state between the uh, asleep dreaming channel and the waking experience channel, which I refer to as the lunar dream and the solar dream, respectively. By the way, and gets into that. I get into that in depth in the lucid dreaming course for members of the NOL. But I believe that she pulled me into a liminal state. She pulled me in away from the waking experience into halfway toward the dreaming experience in order to interact with me. And what it felt like was a test. It felt like she was testing me. I don't know if she was testing my courage or testing to see my um, relationship to death, that sort of thing. But in some way that she was testing me is what I believe, and it feels like I passed the test because it seemed like she was satisfied with the answer that I gave when I said I know, and I didn't lose my shit. You know, I held myself together, um, and I was able to just be there in her presence and interact with her without freaking out. Ruth said I would faint in my dream. That's hilarious. Um, oh, Mike says Morgan was pleased with your lack of fear. May or may not have had any underlying fear of death, mortality at the time that needed addressed, or she was trying to tell you. Uh, Larry says satisfied with the lack of fear, perhaps. Mike said, sounds like you visited Morrigan in the other world. She's very intense, but with death you have rebirth. Yeah, so it feels like she kind of pulled me into that liminal state. And then once she had, once she was satisfied, she released me back into the waking state. Ruth said, was it similar to your encounter with Hecate? Well, that no, that was the experience. It's just that I wasn't sure who it was until recently when I did some research after Mike, who's in the chat tonight, he had suggested perhaps based on the fact that I have some um, Celtic ancestry that perhaps it was the Morrigan, and I had never considered that before, and so I did some research, and it matched perfectly. Everything that I learned about the Morrigan made me more and more convinced that that's who it was. Mike said, "Morrigan, you're going to die soon." And then the reply, and well, she didn't say soon. She just said that I was going to die. She said, "You are going to die, die, die," and it was almost like she was trying to egg me on or trying to trigger me. You know, she was really like pushing it. You know, and I said, "I know." So yeah, and she seemed to yeah, she seemed to be satisfied with that, and then released me back into the waking state. Now, what I did learn about the Morrigan is that she has three different forms, that she had three different goddess forms. And so I encountered one of those forms. But outside my bedroom door, before she appeared in my room, outside the door were three laughing witches. Is what how my mind perceived it at the time. And that matches with the Morrigan, that it was the three different forms of the Morrigan out there before she came into my room to try and maybe stir up some fear, to see if see if she could trigger my fear maybe. And I did find it creepy, but I wasn't. There was some fear. I'll be honest. There was some fear, but it wasn't like over. It didn't overtake me or anything like that. I was able to hold it together, um, but it was a very intense and creepy experience. And but yeah, so there were the three witches cackling outside my bedroom door, and that matches with the tripartite form of the goddess, the Morrigan. Um, Her dark form, she's one of the things. She's a chooser of the slain. She's a type of a death goddess, war and death, and she's also a goddess of the dreams. She's heavily associated with dreams, and she came to me in she well she pulled me into a type of dream state. I was awake. I was fully awake, and she was able to pull me halfway into the dream world. Um, so that matches as well. Um, the vegetation also kind of matches, especially because some of the vegetation seemed like it was rotting, and definitely like a type of a dream, or sorry, a type of death goddess, and nature, death and nature. So everything there. And of course, she told me that I was going to die. She reminded me of my mortality. So everything there seems to make sense. Also, my family name is Crow. Like that's not, I don't know if anybody realizes this, but that's not a pseudonym. That's genuinely my family name. Um, well, originally it was Ndeg, Undeg, which is the Ojibwe word for crow, but at some point during colonization, residential school experience that my grandmother had, the name was changed from Ondeg to the English word crow, but it means crow. Um, and yeah, that's my family name, Crow. And the Morrigan is associated with crows as well because she is a shapeshifter. She shapeshifts into a crow, and sometimes she shapeshifts into a wolf. And I've always felt a strong resonance with the wolf as well as the crow, of course. So everything seemed to match. It just crazy. Everything really seemed to match. Oh, interesting. Sean said that you actually listened to The Morrigan by Courtney Weber on Audible today. Coincidence? I think not. That's quite the synchronicity there, Sean. That's pretty cool. Ruth said, my married last name is Morgan. I felt a connection with her and my path to find magic. Oh, very cool. And yes, crows are associated with the Morrigan. Um, Natosha said, I've been followed by a murder of crows for 8 years now. Very cool. Mike said, I wonder what would happen if you called upon her. She may visit you again. Sounds like y'all need to talk. She ghosted you. LOL, JK. Yeah, actually, since I realized that it was the Morgan, I have had such a strong desire to meet her again. And my plan is actually to meet her within a lucid dream. So when I achieve a sufficient lucid dream, I definitely intend to try and make contact with her within the lucid dream. Now, I have had a few lucid dreams in the past week or so, three in the past about week, but none of them were long enough or deep enough, I guess you could say, to properly utilize for that purpose. But I'm definitely going to. That's my plan. I definitely intend to uh, try and meet with her again via a lucid dream. And I've been like I've been putting in the effort to have another lucid dream, and it's been working. But I need a longer lucid dream that's got a bit more stability to it before I can properly use it for that type of purpose. And the lucid dreams that I've had were a little bit scattered and short, so I couldn't properly use those the last three that I had. But yeah, I'll let you guys know. I hadn't Beyond Zebra asked me if I was meditating prior to this or just hanging out. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't trying to call the Morrigan or anyone for that matter. I was literally just sitting there on my bed and just chilling, you know? It was late at night, but I wasn't lying down. I wasn't sleeping. I was just sitting on my bed. And maybe I was reading or something. I'm not sure. I don't remember having a book in my hand particularly, but um, I used to read quite a bit. I would sit in bed and read. So maybe I was reading. I don't know. I don't think I was reading though. I don't believe that I had a book in my hand or anything. I think I was literally just sitting in my bed, just chilling, just thinking about stuff. And then started hearing the witches cackling, and then realized, oh wait a minute, you know, something is different. And when I came out of it, I was still just sitting in the bed, like, but I was aware and I was looking around the entire time, and I didn't have the paralysis or anything like that that I would usually expect with that kind of liminal state. I was able to move, I was able to talk, but yeah, it was. I had elements of the waking world around me, as well as the astral plane, I guess you could say. Beyond Zebra said, I think it's awesome to have an encounter like this come out of nowhere. Yeah, it was quite profound for more than one reason. And I feel like, yeah, it makes me feel like there are entities like that existing in that liminal space, and that you can make contact with them, and sometimes they'll make contact with you, and you can potentially develop a relationship with those entities. And that's what I intend to do now that I've realized, she's been waiting this whole time for over 25 years for me to figure it out. And I finally figured it out. And so I'm going to make contact and have some discussions with her, and maybe we can do some shape shifting together too. Maybe we can run together as wolves or fly as crows. I think that would be really interesting. It's actually, I'll tell you something. Um, I typically have a goal of something that I want to achieve within a lucid dream, so that next time I have a lucid dream that's stable enough and long enough to do something cool with, then I have something already in mind of what I'm going to do. And my current goal had been that I wanted to shapeshift into a wolf in my dream. That was the next goal that I had in mind, lined up, when I realized that that encounter I had back when I was much younger was the Morrigan. And so it's funny because my goal was to shapeshift into a wolf in my dream. That was my next lined up goal that I had ready for myself. And she is a shapeshifter, and one of her two most common forms is a wolf. So actually, I'll tell you my what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask her if she would be willing to shapeshift into a wolf along with me, and maybe we can go for a run or something. You know, just see how that goes. Um, yeah. So I kind of blended the two goals together in that sense to try and make contact with the Morrigan and shapeshift into a wolf. So that's what I'm working on right now. Um, cool. Sean mentioned there said Morgan. What I learned today was that if the Morgan offers herself to you like she did with Cuchulainn, Cuchulainn, I'm not sure exactly how that's pronounced, but I know you're talking about the um, I don't know what word you would use. A guy who had second sight, I believe, and he features heavily in a lot of Celtic folklore and mythology. Uh, if you refuse, then you have to battle her in animal form. Ah, interesting. Mike said Morrigan is perfect for shadow work, and I've been told, and she can help guide you through the waking world, but she's also very brutal at times. Yeah, well, my favorite card in the tarot is the Tower card. I've got a stylized version of it tattooed on my back, a full back piece tattoo of the Tower card, a variant of it. So I like that kind of energy. Um, Mike also said, oh, Ruth said, have you encountered other gods and goddesses in this way? Not exactly in that way, but in lucid dreams, I have. I told the story of when I met Abraxas about a month ago. If you look back in my channel, my YouTube channel here, to past live streams, there's one talking about when I met Abraxas. So that's one example that I've talked about publicly. Mike said, being the goddess of sovereignty, her energy can help one achieve apotheosis. Oh, that's perfect because I'm definitely into that. I did a video about that yesterday, I think it was, yeah, or no, day before yesterday. Beyond Zebra said, you held it together far better than I could. I get startled super easily. Wish I had $1 for every time I yell, Jesus, when I turn a corner and someone's there. That's hilarious. Um, uh, Bro, that's a badass tattoo. Morgan is perfect for you then. Yeah. Yeah, I'm extremely motivated to meet the Morrigan. And that's how I met the Morrigan. And I hope to meet her again. And I'm going to do what I can to try and develop a relationship with her. So I hope you enjoyed my recounting of very intense and peculiar experience that I had in my early 20s. And at this point, I'm going to wrap it up because we're going to have a meeting, a private meeting for members of the Novus Ordo Luciferi. And if you are in the NOL, I'm going to be starting the meeting as soon as we finish this live stream in a minute or two. And if you aren't a member of the NOL but have been considering it, now would be a great time to join. You can join using the link in the description of this video or in the pinned comment in the live chat to the Patreon. And if you join at the $5 tier or above, it will unlock the most recent post on Patreon, which has a link to the meeting that we're going to have right now. And that would that would unlock that post, so you can jump on that meeting tonight if you're interested in continuing the conversation. All right. Well, on that note, everyone, stay lucid.